Good afternoon.
Hello, hello. How you doing, Donald?
I'm all right. Pretty good, pretty good.
Now that you got your headset all working okay?
Yeah, had a little technical difficulties when we were trying to get on here. So we're
Yeah.
running just a tad late.
Okay. I got everything all shared out now.
Maybe we won't get hit with copyright stuff. And I've been noticing that on the other stuff's been getting hit.
Not since I changed the music. We've been fine since then. So so as long as it stays that way, we'll be good. Okay, just
Eyes give me issues. I don't know why.
allergies.
Nah, it's that shingles stuff. Every once in a while, my corner of my eye
Oh,
aggravates me. It's a nerve and all in there. Because when I had it followed that nerve pattern right to the corner of my eye and then up into my scalp.
oh, that's not a pleasant feeling.
No, it's still all that's still numb. It's been I don't know 5 years, maybe 4 or 5 years now.
I can relate it because all of this right here is numb. I'm getting some feeling on this side of my nose now, but this part right here is numb, and the gums underneath here is just extremely sensitive. So, um, fun announcement: we have a new-ish show. Joe has is redoing the JT's Wrestling World that he was doing with his wife.
Hmm.
Now he and Chris are doing the show together.
Awesome.
They just did their first show Wednesday night, but they haven't come up with a new name yet. So hopefully next week they'll have a this week as next week they'll have a new name. Hard to tell week to week nowadays.
All my days run together.
Pretty much, yeah. Um, but I'm really excited about this episode because we are doing a WCW pay per view review today.
I think this might be our first WCW show.
Period. Yeah. Everything has always been WWF, WWE. We did do one on Sting, so
Yeah.
but most of his career was in WCW. The
Right.
first half of it was. It's like his career ran in threes: WCW, TNA, and AEW. He was only in WWE for a very short amount of time.
Yeah. That was just kind of get him in there, get him in the Hall of Fame, and send him on his way. I think,
And also to give him a WrestleMania match.
which it should have went a different way, but you know,
It should
it
have.
is what it is.
Yeah, he should have been able to say, "I won a match at WrestleMania," but I get why they went the direction that they went in because he was that last WCW holdout that they could not beat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that whole scenario with DX and NWO coming out,
That was awesome.
that was that was some surreal stuff there.
Yes, nobody ever expected that to happen.
Yeah.
Although it could have happened when they did that NWO invasion in 2002.
Yeah, they really, like I said before, they dropped the ball on that. Vince dropped the ball on that big time.
I
So
think everybody agrees on that one.
they just, that whole WWE is better than WCW ego thing just stayed with him, and he just couldn't put his pride and his show aside for what
Well,
they really wanted.
in many aspects, WWE, hi Joe, WWE was better than WCW. But that being said, WCW did have a certain element um, that really set it apart from the WWF that made it really special.
Yeah, that whole, when they bought it, like I said, we went down this road before. When they bought it, they should
Yeah.
have kept it separate. But
Uh,
anyway,
Now, when you look at some of the WCW pay per views, they had some really strong ones, but the one that we are doing today was not one of the strong ones, not in my opinion.
most of the matches were pretty good. Um, there again, you don't have a lot of storyline when you're watching a pay per view from the past. But and there were a couple matches that were just they could have done away with
To say the
quickly. Yeah, but overall, I thought it was a pretty decent pay per view. Um, it was back in '91.
right.
I think this was the third Halloween Havoc.
Uh-huh. Third Halloween Havoc, and I think that this was the first one where they actually utilized the Halloween theme into their matches. Um, I have not seen the 89 or the 90 Halloween Havoc. Um, so this is the first the earliest Halloween Havoc that I've seen. Halloween Havoc 92 was actually my very first WCW pay per view, watching it live. But they kind of departed a little bit from what they did on this one here. So I'll just run down what I have here for just for the event. Halloween Havoc 91. It was at the UTC Arena, which at the time stood for University of Tennessee at Chattanooga in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Now it is known as the McKenzie Arena. Their attendance was 8,900 people, which is not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and even from the camera angles of what they show, it looked like it was a pretty packed house.
Yeah, I noticed there was some a lot of a lot of people having even up in the nosebleed seats.
Yeah,
You know,
I
and what
know.
I saw a lot of younger people, probably from around the college and stuff like that. Um,
Which
there,
makes sense.
yeah,
Being University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, that's a hell of a name. I'm glad they shortened it to UCT. Um, and this arena was also used for Clash of the Champions 4, I guess. hold on. I might have gotten that wrong. Clash of Champions 4 seems way too early. Um, but they also had an In Your House Final Four. That was the In Your House following the 97 Rumble, where they did that four way with uh, Brett, Vader, Sid, and Austin, I think.
Well, this card was full of names that would later on become synonymous with WWE or WWF. Um,
Yes, it was. Yeah.
there's a couple. I got a couple notes here that um,
Well, just the first match alone, um, all but one are in the Hall of Fame. Just that first match alone.
that would be Giant Gonzalez
Yeah, he's the only one that's not in the Hall of Fame. And I got to say, he actually wrestled better in this match than he ever did, from what I remember
in
in WWE.
WWF. Yeah,
He was moving a lot better.
that first match to me, I mean, I can see why they would start with that one. Get the crowd pumped up, but that one should have been pushed back maybe a little farther.
Well, I was actually watching the Jim Ross Grill and Jr. podcast where he and Conrad were talking about that, and the reason that match was put on first is because of how much time they had to use to set it up, and they really didn't want to do that during pay per view time. So they had it set up before they went live, and then it was much easier to get rid of it after that.
I can see that. Um,
Because Conrad made an argument that it should have gone last. I disagree with it, but because of its theme, I could see it them going last. But to me, that match was a cluster.
that if that was what going to be their finishing stuff, it would have finished very weak.
Yeah,
Um, One thing with the match, it to me is it looked like they were just all in and around the ring and really didn't have much of a plan other than the ending.
I don't think they did either.
Um, you had some guy show up out of a casket in the very beginning of it that wasn't even in the match. He got handcuffed, beat down. Um,
And I've looked everywhere to
for
find
him,
out who that was. I have no idea who that is, and there was never really an explanation of why he was there.
well, it's the same thing with the ghouls that came out. All the guys that with the stretcher, they played no part other than to get their ass beat at the very end.
So um, Jim Ross was talking about that. The original plan was whoever got electrocuted in that chair was supposed to be put on that stretcher and taken out, but Abdullah had other plans, and plus it would have been very hard for them to carry him out on that little stretcher. And
Well,
here's a tidbit:
he was not supposed to be in the match.
half of them weren't supposed to be in
Right.
that match.
Cactus Jack was not supposed to be in it.
No, Cactus Jack was actually supposed to have been Bill Kazmaier's opponent. Um, let's see here.
One Man Gang was supposed to have a match during this, but he left. He left the company right before the pay-per-view.
Yes, Barry Windham was supposed to be in that match as well. Then there was that whole thing where Barry Windham was hanging out with Dustin Rhodes a lot, and the heels didn't take too kindly to that. And then there was the whole thing at the very beginning of the show where they showed the people arriving.
Hmm.
And oh man, that to me that was bad because Eric Bischoff doing doing his talking, and when Dustin and Barry got ambushed by Arn Anderson and Larry Zabisco, Eric was just right there saying, "Oh yeah, now they're doing this." He wasn't getting overly excited about it. He was just
There.
commentating what. Yeah, he was just there commentating what was happening, just at a little bit of a higher level than just normal speaking
He
voice.
would have been better just to move out of the way and not say a damn thing.
I think you're right. Yeah,
Um, and that kind of goes into the ring announcer. I don't remember his name. Who announced
Eric
all?
Michael Capetta.
Oh my God, he is boring. Dear Lord, he was boring.
But he had been their announcer for years.
I know it's just he's dry.
Yeah, he used to be the announcer for the WWWF back in the 70s and early 80s. I don't know if you knew that or not, but he was their ring announcer, and then Howard Finkel took over.
There's no excitement whatsoever in his voice when he's announcing anybody.
No,
It's like he's reading off of a card, and you know
and
that's it.
same way for when he's announcing the winner and new whatever champion.
And I think maybe part of it he doesn't have that voice. It's like a monotone voice that just everything is just like across the same level.
Yes. Um, but to be fair, I actually did enjoy him being the announcer for WCW because it set them on their own thing, whereas with Howard Finkel and WWF was their own thing. So they had to be somewhat different. They didn't want, well, I would think that they didn't want somebody to be identical to Howard.
Well, he doesn't have a radio voice.
He does not. Um, and speaking of voice, one one thing that I had written on here: Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone as the commentators for this event. Both are great commentators, but putting them together on a show, at least at this time, was a mistake because I had a hard time knowing the difference of who was talking, whether if it was Jim talking or if it was Tony talking.
Well, see, I mean, I grew up listening to Jim Ross, so it was easier for me to pick that voice up. He's just got that tone that I
Yeah.
recognize. So for me, it wasn't that big. That wasn't that hard. Now, Tony Schiavone doesn't have. He's kind of like the ring announcer. He doesn't have a. Uh, to me, that voice to be a ring
Not,
announcer.
not really. Um, his voice was very distinctive. Both and Jim Ross is definitely one of the very best announcers ever. Um, but at this time, his voice just sounded too similar to Tony's.
Yeah. Now, Tony, I can remember back watching pay per views at WCW, and it got better. Just on this particular one, it wasn't that great. He got better at it, the years that went by.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that big of a deal, back in the uh, mid '90s, 2000s.
Well, the early '90s WCW honestly wasn't really that great in anything. Um, but
This was the
that's not
first.
all for the talent, though.
I believe I read this was the first WCW only event when they did that split with was it
AEW.
NWA? Yeah. So this was their first standalone, totally WCW.
You might be right on that. Yeah, they had this on and off again relationship with
This
W.
is the first Halloween Havoc held by WCW alone. That's there you go. Alone following it split from the National Wrestling Alliance on January '91. So that's what it is.
Okay, okay, yeah, I see it now. All right, so that would have been their third pay per view then without NWA. Um, Another thing that they had against them on this night was this was the same night of Game 7 of the World Series. The Atlanta Braves and the Minnesota Twins. And if you notice, one of the headstones there on the stage had Minnesota Twins on it.
That's what that was. I was trying to read it. I was trying to read them
Yeah,
during the match.
yeah. It had Minnesota Twins on one of those headstones. When you're looking at it, it's all the way to the left. So that was a nice little thing there, and I would imagine that, well, they never would have known that World Series was going to go to 7 for that year. It's always a chance, but I think that when they scheduled Halloween Havoc, they probably didn't know at the time exactly when the World Series was going to be scheduled. I'm not really sure how
Yeah,
that works.
yeah. I was
It,
never I was never a big Braves fan. So
you know, I'm I'm not a baseball fan. Period.
around here, around here, baseball and football are really big,
Yeah.
and around here, they everybody claims college, Mississippi State or Ole Miss, which I'm an Ole Miss fan. Uh, so I'm out of the normal for that because most people around here are Mississippi State fans because Starkville's only an hour away, and then they got New Orleans. That's one everybody claims around here, and then you got the Braves, and the Braves actually had a minor league um, team here for a while down in Jackson. They just recently moved. I think this is their last year here.
Okay.
But anyway,
Um, so the first match of the night was the Chamber of Horrors match. Um, oh, it was Clash Champions 4. I just found it. Okay. So Chamber of Horrors match. So many things changed from the time that they first announced it to the time that they actually got it going. Um, Half of these people were not even supposed to be in this match originally. You got Sting, Elegante, and the Steiner brothers versus Big Van Vader, who was not supposed to be in the match. Cactus Jack, who was not supposed to be in the match. Abdullah the Butcher, who was not supposed to be in the match. And Diamond Stud. He's the only one from that four originally in the match. Um, and of course, everyone, well, except for Abdullah, every one of these guys within the next 5 years would be wrestling in WWF.
right. Um, well,
Uh,
Sting's not in there either.
yeah, yeah, Sting.
Diamond Stud would later on be Scott Hall,
Razor Ramon.
right? Of course, Cactus Jack. Everybody knows who Mick Foley is.
Yep.
Um,
Mankind first. And then he would have the stint as Dude Love. then Elegante as Giant Gonzalez. Oh man!
Yeah. And
Now,
Scott Steiner came in there uh, for a little bit. I remember the pay per view with him and Triple H, and it was, oh my god. By this time, he was
yeah, Steiner
so
brothers were done by then.
yeah, he was so dang um, bulked up that he couldn't move, he couldn't do anything.
I have never seen anybody build his body the way that he did. His bicep alone was freakish looking. It's almost like somebody cut into his arm and put a baseball on top of
Hmm.
his bicep. That tell me that ain't natural. um,
That match, like I said, it seemed like it was kind of everybody was there, and they didn't really have a plan on what they were going to do other than the ending. And of course, that apparently changed, you know, because of Abula wasn't even supposed to be in the match. So, a couple key things in there. Sting dropped a casket lid on Cactus Jack's head, which then he went down and cut himself, and he bled like a stuck pig.
oh, he did.
I don't know if they said Sting got busted up, but I don't know if that was his blood or if that was blood from Cactus Jack that got on him.
He he was getting blood from Cactus Jack, and then he was also getting blood dripped on him from Abdullah because Abdullah was split open as well.
Yeah,
And speaking of Abdullah, that man climbed the cage.
that was another thing in the match. I mean, you had him climbing, you had Cactus Jack climbing, you had several of them climbing up there, and I don't know why. Because the way the cage was made, it goes straight up and then it has a little ledge,
It's not going to be easy getting out of there.
and it's like, why are you climbing the cage? Because you're not getting out.
Yeah, I
And another big thing in this match, I think, was a, a big hindrance was the size of the chair and the cage around the chair. It
did.
pretty much took most of the ring up.
Yeah, did you see when they were lowering it? Cactus Jack was still underneath it, and I don't know if you saw it, but I noticed Abdullah try to get in there to shoo him away.
I saw a hand. I thought it was the ref telling him because he wasn't even looking. He was still kind of face down, and he rolled out of the way. I mean, he had plenty of time,
Yeah, he
but
had plenty of time, but still, that's kind of pushing a little close there. Um, let's see. Oh, the ghouls. It was hard to tell, and I found this on Tony Schiavone's podcast. He was doing a watch along on his show with
mhm,
this, and the ghouls, the guy in the very front on the right hand side, that was Adam Baum. That was
okay.
Brian Clark.
Yeah, I was trying to look at some of them and seeing if I could recognize any of them. And at the time, I didn't recognize them. Of course, everybody had their face painted all white, and
Yeah, and plus this was 2 years before we would even see Brian Clark wrestling.
that's a big thing, with even WWF or WWE. These the druids and the security and the all these extras they put in their show is most of which are you know
Local
wrestlers in their organization that are you know
or just local wrestlers.
yeah that they're kind of putting in there.
Hmm. Um, how would you like the entrances for this match?
I didn't like it. um everybody was kind of coming in, and if you didn't catch it right at the beginning, you didn't know who was on whose team, not knowing you know, um,
It
the
didn't.
storylines and all.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense why they came out so staggered like that.
Yeah, you
Because
know,
you have Elegante for the face team, and then you have three guys from the heels come out, and then the Steiner bro. What the hell is this?
if you're going to do it that way, or if you're going to do it anyway, have your heels come out and have your baby faces come out. You
Yeah,
still Sting is your big guy, that big name that's coming out last, anyways.
right.
So you could have still done it the same way.
And he was the United States champion. What's funny is that he gets out and he starts doing this, and his belt falls down
Yeah,
onto the thing. I'm thinking, wait a minute, are these things supposed to snap on, or did they not have it on right? This this whole thing was a mess. Did you notice that the switch was down half the match?
uh,
Yeah, the switch was. They even had a clear camera view of the switch halfway through the match, and it was down. And there was a couple times where the referee climbed up the cage to put it up, and then he was trying to put tape on it to keep it up.
they would have done better not having it labeled. So you know, but when Foley flipped the switch on Abula, which the headpiece wasn't even on when he was sitting there, shaking and all that stuff. I'm like, good lord, this is horrible. And
And
then all the pyrotechnics and everything went off. Do what?
he was waiting up there.
Yeah. And then the
It,
pyrotechnics went off and set the ring kind of on fire in several places. And it was like the referee sitting there stomping the shit out. And I was like, good lord.
yeah, stomping it out, and then you got people coming in with the push brooms. Okay, this is done. Let's clean up. Move on to the next. Oh man, that was terrible. And that's surprising with the talent that they had in this match. Granted, at the time they weren't exactly Hall of Fame level yet.
Well, you got to look at your wrestlers and your writers, who should have they should have sat down and discussed what they were going to do in the match. It was almost like a Royal Rumble where, hey, each wrestler would get with each other and it's like, what you want to do in there? All right, we'll do this. Okay. And it just seemed like they were just
And
improv
it was also
improv the entire thing.
it was also during this time when the TBS executives were trying to run things as well. And that hurt them bad because the executives at TBS didn't know shit about wrestling.
Right.
Um, what'd you think of the referee camera?
I hated it. I freaking hated it. Looked like a dang baseball batting helmet. Uh,
It was
Looked like a baseball batting helmet, um, with a camera stuck to it. And good idea, I guess, in some ways.
it is a good idea, but I would not want to be the ref wearing that thing. I can imagine how much
More
it,
weight and all that stuff was on it. Plus, and it would have to be where you have to remember not only what you're doing in the match, but you also have to remember at any point in time they're cutting this thing on. So you got to, make sure your head is pointed
right.
toward the people and not their feet. Because that was an issue with a couple times, and then another time the thing was messing up. You could see static and all coming across, and they immediately swapped out with another camera angle.
Yeah, but it did let us know. Okay, this is how the referees are seeing it.
Right.
So
They could have come up with a better name too. Was it a
yeah,
refer cam or refer something? I don't know.
it's called the referee cam.
Yeah,
Conrad kept calling it the reefer eye.
I heard that. I heard that.
Yeah, uh, it's a good idea, but at the time, if they tried something like that now, it would be so much better. Technology's a lot better, and the cameras would be much lighter.
Yeah, I mean, what you think about, doing the paranormal and stuff. We got body cams sometimes and GoPros. So it'd be a whole lot easier to put on now
Yeah,
if they just did like a body cam. Then you're going to get that whole scene anyway. It's going to be a lot wider, lot bigger area, and you're not going to have all that shake.
uh, well,
Not
yeah,
as bad.
yeah, you are because if the camera is physically on the referee, all these referees are doing some moving.
Well, they've got the way they got those cameras now. There's some anti-shake stuff going on with some of the cameras, or it's more stable.
I'd have to see it. I would have to see it. Um,
Now live, it's a little different, but I know when you're editing, so editing software also has a way to
oh yeah,
eliminate, eliminate your shake.
that you can do. Live, I don't think they'd be able to do that. Um, I thought that they had a really cool set where the wrestlers was coming out of this haunted house. I thought that was pretty cool. Um,
They could have covered up the two by fours on the stage entrance to the ring. Just put a piece of black cloth on there so you're not seeing the two by fours.
and also when Vader came out, you could see the people outside. They had to reach out to shut the door.
Oh, I
Um,
didn't see that part.
I didn't either until Conrad said something about it, and because he said that the guy that he saw doing it was Mike Graham, and Mike Graham is the son of Eddie Graham or the brother of Eddie Graham. Um, but he was the one that had to reach out and close the door when Vader came out. Um, I don't know what to think of the raised platform that they walked down instead of actually being down on the floor like usual.
Yeah.
A lot of WCW stuff, they were using the platform where they are level with the ring,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of limits what you can do when you're outside the ring, especially if your name is Braun Strowman, who loves going around there. Um, but I get it to make them more visible for the fans. I get that part, but I don't know if I like that raised up platform because they use that for a few pay per views. I think they use that on almost all of the Clash of Champions. Um, but I personally don't think I'd be a fan of that raised platform.
No, I kind of like the way it is now, where it's you're coming down. Of course, you got bigger entrance ways in most places now. Um,
Especially WrestleMania.
yeah. Um, so yeah, I don't really care for the platform thing, especially during this. And there was one point in time where I think they were setting the thing down when Abula come down. Well, yeah, they had to set it and place it down because of the way the cage and all was set, I guess.
Yeah, they removed that one section there for the cage.
Yeah.
And then when they were putting it in, and Abdullah came out and started stomping on the guys that were bringing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about that, man. And he's still alive. He's 83 years old.
Yeah, I was reading his biography thing on internet. Yeah, he's still kicking.
Yeah.
Um, somebody had said might have been Mick Foley that he's cut himself so much that he can put poker chips in his forehead.
Well, he is really scarred up, that's for sure.
Well, he's had some brutal matches.
Oh yeah.
Um, him and Terry Funk had a lot of bloody matches.
Yeah, but Terry Funk is not scarred up like Abdullah is. I don't
Yeah,
know anybody who's that scarred. There's a lot of scarred up wrestlers out there, but I don't think anybody has as much as what Abdullah's got.
yeah.
Of course, he's got a lot more room to do it too. Um, but Chamber of Horrors, I like the concept, but the execution was really, really bad.
Yeah, I agree. One of the weaker matches on the card. Not the weakest, but
No, not the weakest, but probably the most poorly executed.
yeah.
Um, Up next is an interview segment with Eric Bischoff and Missy Hyatt. Um, I'm going to be honest. I keep forgetting how Missy Hyatt looked back in that day.
She she's been around wrestling for a long time, and you could tell she is not an actress. Not necessarily in this segment, but the one later on. I was like, oh my god, you can't act.
Yeah,
Um, now when they first came on there and Bischoff's in his vampire outfit and he starts talking, immediately my brain went to Count Chocula. Not Dracula, Count Chocula. It's like, oh my dear God. And I'm glad he quit. Really, I'm glad he just did his little intro and then he started talking normal. It was like,
yeah. I
dear
noticed that he
God.
stopped doing that about 30, 45 seconds into it.
I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, and Missy Hyatt was dressed up as a burlesque dancer, and they were interviewing the. Well, first of all, they was talking about the Halloween Phantom,
Mm-hmm.
which we would all come to find out to be Rick Rude. But here she was talking about that. This is all she cared about was finding out who this Phantom was. Um, and then finally, we get a reprieve, and the Young Pistols come in for an interview. And to me, this interview seemed like it was just way out of place because these guys are dressed to wrestle.
They're not even on the card.
Yeah, they're not even on the card. They weren't even on a well. They didn't have any dark matches, so putting them here was didn't add anything to the show.
Yeah, they should have interviewed the Patriot and who's the other
Yes,
guy? They should have interviewed them too. The firefighter guy.
Firebreaker Chip and Todd Champion.
Yeah, they should have interviewed them in place.
They should have, and I've got a few things to say about Todd Champion when we get to that match. Um, I like the little setup that they had, the little Halloween autumn backdrop that they had. I like that. Then we move on to the next match, which
Uh, that
P.
was
Hughes and Big Josh versus the Creatures.
yeah. I did some looking on that on the creatures. Uh, number 2 was Joey Meggs, and later become Jumpin' Joey Meggs, and then Johnny Rich. Um, Johnny Rich is related to
Tommy Rich.
Tommy Rich.
Yeah.
Um, Back in my old heyday of going to wrestling, I've got Tommy Rich's picture and autograph, stuck in my stuff. Um, but anyway, you
I,
know,
I know at one time they were looking at the NWA was looking at Tommy Rich to be the next big star, and that didn't work out so well.
Tommy Wildfire Rich, I think that's what it was, wasn't it? Tommy Wildfire.
I think so.
Um, Big Josh was later on to become uh, one of the characters that, or one of the guys that played Doink.
He was the first one that was Doink.
Yeah.
He was the
Um,
first one that was Doink. Um, and then also Big Josh. Well, at least for this one, his Northern Exposure was the same move as the Quake from Earthquake. But then when he went to uh, no, while he was still in WCW, he started doing that move from the top rope, doing the sit down splash from the top rope. He was still, because I remember him doing that while he was still in WCW, and then he took that with him to WWF when he became Doink.
well, with a smaller guy, it doesn't seem as devastating as somebody like Earthquake.
No, if Earthquake had jumped off the top rope and done that, you're dead.
Well, like Nia Jax.
Oh,
Yeah.
what she did with live? Oh man, I don't see how she wasn't hurt after that.
Yeah, no, it's like, oh my God. She just fell off the second rope on top of her, I think. Second rope? I don't think it was third rope. I think it's second rope. But yeah, it's like, oh my
Still
God.
not enough.
Yeah.
Um, and then PN News.
He would later on go to ECW for a short period of time, I think. But that whole gimmick just, and I know it's the times of hip hop and rap and was getting big back
Yeah,
then, and but you got to have a little bit of talent to do it if you're going to do it.
yeah,
You know
he didn't seem like he was really a rapper.
no, the yo baby yo thing wasn't even in time with his music.
Well, the Yo Baby Yo, that was a big thing back then.
Yeah,
Because Vanilla Ice did a variation of that for when he did the song for Ninja Turtles. Is Go Ninja, Go Ninja, Go.
yeah, I remember that.
So one of them ripped that off from the other. I don't know which came first. Um, and even for as big as PN News was, he did a nice looking drop kick.
Yeah, that's what I was going to comment on. His drop kick was pretty good for a guy that size.
Yeah. Well, even Earthquake had done drop kicks.
That's a lot of human to get up.
I know, but if you got some athletics behind you, and there are some big men that's got it, they can do stuff. Um, I didn't really see much more out of Pia News aside from that drop kick. And then to end the match, he gets up on top of the rope.
It
To,
splashes.
yeah, um, which that wasn't a pretty splash,
No.
but he had a really nice looking drop kick.
Yeah. That match, that match went. Let's see. The first match went 12:33. Second match went 5:16. 5 minutes 16 seconds.
Yeah,
With
and,
Josh and News winning over the Creatures.
And the reason I believe, the only reason I believe that match was in there in the first place is that they wanted to keep up with this Halloween theme. So that's why they
That threw the creatures in there,
did the
and they
creature.
actually kept them for a little while. Um, Eventually phased out, I'm sure. Just
Because that's just a Halloween thing.
yeah,
Joey Maggs, I'm very familiar with from being a talent enhancement in the WWF. After this, because I remember Joey Maggs and George South, Steve Bradley, Barry Horowitz, Dwayne Gill. I remember all them guys, and Joey Maggs is one of them. I got to know the talent enhancement guys as much as I did the actual superstars. Um, and I looked forward to seeing those guys.
well, it's like you get this back backstage segments. A lot of times in WWE now, not so much now, but back several years, you would see Arn Anderson, you would see Michael Hayes. And of course, you still see Michael Hayes around a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, Terry Taylor was even back there uh, sometimes, but it's like nice to see those old school wrestlers. Now that they're done in the ring, they're using their talents behind the scenes to bring up the new generations.
Speaking of Arn Anderson, there is a suspicion that he is going to be Cody Rhodes' manager.
Really,
Yeah, Cody. Cody said something in some interview. I don't know who he was talking to, but he said something along the lines about having a maybe having a classic manager. Um,
I think I read that somewhere where he thought would bring in a classic manager for
yeah,
which I don't know unless he's fixing it.
all eyes went to Arn because now Arn is either leaving or no longer with AEW.
It would be nice to have his big brother.
Oh, Dustin,
That would be awesome.
it would be. I have no idea how much longer he's got on his contract.
That
But
that
yeah,
match that match was I did see Big Josh use a razor edge, kinda a razor edge. Looked pretty decent for not really setting it up really big. It was like out of the spur of the moment type move. And I think one of the creatures landed on their head at that point in time, or on the back of his neck,
yeah, I
and he
didn't
actually
catch
did
that
it.
part. Oh, speaking of that, uh, one thing that I thought was a little unnecessary was when P and News did his splash to get the pin. Big Josh jumped on P and News and stepped on his neck.
I didn't see him step on his neck, but I saw him step up on him. I was like,
Yeah, he stepped up on him, and I think that he tried to have his foot on in between the shoulder blades, but it slipped down to his neck and almost on his head.
he didn't step there very long, so that's
No,
maybe why.
yeah. Uh, but I think I like Big Josh better as Doink.
I didn't get into the clowns. That was that point where I quit watching. I was like, this is getting stupid.
Well, he hated that gimmick, but he made it work.
Well, it's like Akeem, you know. He made that because, from what I understand, Vince didn't have any idea who Akeem was, other than he came from Africa, and you just go out there and do something.
Yeah, but I don't recall hearing that he didn't like it though. He just went with it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like Dusty Rhodes when he dressed him in black and yellow polka dots. He went out there and he didn't necessarily care for it too much, and at the beginning, so it's like I'm gonna have fun with it.
Yeah, and
You know?
it got over,
Yeah.
and did not like that at all.
No.
Oh man. Okay, next match, which in my opinion was probably the match of the night, Bobby Eaton and Terry Taylor.
It was a really good match. This is where they're part of the was it York Foundation or something? Is that what it
Taylor,
was?
Taylor
Huh?
was, yes. Terrence Taylor was.
Um,
Bobby Eaton wasn't.
no, no. One thing I noticed was, which would later be Dustin's wife, uh,
Was,
Terry Reynolds, Alexandria York.
yeah, and they were not married at this time. They didn't
No,
get married until '93.
didn't realize that was her until I was like, "Who is this?" And then I like pulled it up. I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I see it now."
She put her hair up like that, give her curls, and give her those big rim glasses. You couldn't tell it was her.
No, and you're carrying around this big, look like Tandy desktop computer. I know it was a laptop, but good lord, that thing was like a big brick. And that whole gimmick, open it up and having the wrestler come out there and look at it, and just like that's just that's just dumb.
Uh, it
I'm surprised that somewhere in the two matches that it was ringside that it didn't get introduced into the match somehow or another. That's what I was expecting.
at one point Terry did grab for the laptop, and she pulled it away.
Okay.
At one time, he
Now that was when he was outside the ring and
no, they were still in the ring. They were
oh,
all
were
still
they?
in the ring, and Terry was going to the corner, and he had his hands on the laptop, and she pulled it away from him.
Um, Bobby Eaton, of course, part of the Midnight Express for years, and Terry Taylor being technical wrestler that he was.
And
Both,
getting away from that red rooster.
yeah. This was prior, wasn't it? This would be prior to the Red Rooster, wouldn't it?
No, this is after
Really? Okay. Well,
year and a half after.
okay. Well, that was good. That was
Yeah.
good. Finish something besides that blemish of the Red Rooster.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Seeing him as the red rooster, you think he was a terrible wrestler, but seeing him in this match is like, holy shit, this guy can
no,
go.
I grew up watching Terry Taylor in Mid South, and he was always a good technical wrestler.
Yeah, I didn't. My first introduction to him was actually when he came back to the WWF after this run, and he was terrific. Terry Taylor. Um, he did okay, but again, they just never utilized him very well.
Right. Back in Mid South run, he had run-ins with Adrian Street. He had run-ins with Jake Snake Roberts. He teamed up with Chris Adams for a while with I think they won the tag titles, and then he wound up. I think Chris Adams was getting pinned, and he had his leg on a rope, and I remember Terry walking by and kicking the leg off, which later on have them turn against each other and
Yeah.
wrestle each other. But like I said, he was always a good technical wrestler. My couple of my biggest memories of him was he had the TV title, which at that time was a medallion that they wore around. And I'm thinking Adrian Street wound up kissing him on the lips and wound up pinning him. It just shocked him. It was like, oh my God, you know,
Okay.
wound up losing the title to Adrian Street with Miss Linda, which is his wife, which Adrian just passed away like last year. Um, and then another big memory I had was when Jake Snake Roberts DDT'd him on a metal chair. And that's like one of the big clips that still hang around
Oh,
on
okay.
the internet. On the internet now is that DDT on the steel chairs. Like, oh my God, because none of that had ever been done back in the day.
I'm seeing pictures of Adrian Street now. Uh, Very much like what Adrian Adonis was.
Right. This would have been before Adrian Adonis. This was back in 84, 80, 80 83 to 86 ish, I'm guessing.
I remember Adrian Adonis doing the.
Adrian Street was way more flamboyant than Adonis,
Okay.
like
Because
extreme
I know
flamboyant.
that at WrestleMania 2, which was in '86, was when Adrian Adonis was doing that flamboyant thing. Um,
And there's always been wrestlers in most every little, especially in little organizations. They'd always have the flamboyant one come out, um, and usually he's a heel.
yeah.
But yeah, if you look at old interviews with Adrian Adonis, I mean he come from the UK, and I want to say his dad was either a coal miner or a steel miner. I mean,
Uh,
a man's man, who's a rough.
Street's family was in the coal mining business. His
Yeah,
father was a miner for 51 years.
yeah, he was a what
Wow.
you'd consider a man's man. I mean, a hard working, rough guy. And when he always wanted Adrian to go into the family business, so to speak, and he didn't want to. He did for a little while, but he wanted to wrestle. And if you ever seen that Adrian Street documentary that shows all that stuff,
Okay.
and I think he might have went home, and he was showing him his outfit and his persona, and it's like, so, to go from like, masculine man to Adrian Street, it's like total swap over. And I
Well,
think in the documentary, he was always looking for acceptance from his father for his career path, and I think he wound up getting it before his dad died, or,
I,
or, or there was maybe it was after he died that friends of his dad told him that how proud he was of his son. But yeah, I had actually contacted him when he started this thing, trying to get wrestlers on, possibility of getting some on there, and he wanted like wasn't much. It was like 200, $200 or something.
Adrian Street.
Yeah, to come
Well,
on.
that would have been right before he died because we started in January of 23 and he died in July of 23.
Yeah,
Wow.
he died after the documentary, I do believe.
Okay. Okay. I see it here. The life and times of Adrian Street. So, from what I'm seeing here, that was his actual name.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
but
I'll have to see if I can find that.
it's a good documentary, especially from old school wrestling.
Yeah. I always enjoyed looking at the old school stuff. Um,
But yeah, back to Bob Eaton, Terry Taylor, or Terrence Taylor, as he was
To
being
me,
called.
that was the best match of the night. Um, and Bobby Eaton, I so wish that they could have had him elevate to that next level as a singles wrestler. Great tag wrestler, but I thought he was a really, really good singles wrestler as well. And I so wish that he could have had some sort of a run or at least chase the world title.
Yeah, their big heyday was Midnight Express and Rock and Roll Express, and um, they always had those big clashes together,
Yeah,
scaffold matches, and it's all kind of stuff. And
if utilized right, he could have been the Shawn Michaels of the Midnight Express. And if they did let him do that, then we'd be saying that Shawn Michaels was a Bobby Eaton of the Midnight Express
true.
Rockers. But that's just how it goes. And I don't understand how he never seriously hurt himself doing the leg drop off the top rope. That's that has to do something to your hip. Um, but yeah, to me that was the match of the night.
I thought it was a really good match. I've got another one to me that was the match of the night for me, but that's like probably right behind this other one. Um, but we'll get into that in a few minutes.
Yeah, the next one, I don't know what to think about this one. Johnny B. Bad.
I don't know if this was part of the Halloween persona stuff or if this was his regular character when he came in.
That
Talking
was
about
his
Mark
regular
Mera.
character.
When I first saw him come out, I was like, he's dressed like Little Richard.
That that was how he dressed all the way up into '95 when he left
Flamboyant. We were
WCW.
just talking about flamboyancy.
The flamboyancy, the makeup. Um,
The
he
whole
he was all
mustache and hairdo.
mustache. Yep, the mustache, the little uh, blaster thing where he would shoot confetti out into the crowd. He did all of that.
He
Uh,
looked like Little Richard.
he looked like Little Richard, and he also looked like a gigolo. Um, he was always saying, "I'm a bad man," and he would also say, "I am WCW's prettiest man." I
And to
sh-
go and to go from that to regular Mark Murrow in WWF with Sable is totally direct opposite.
yes. And probably the most off-putting thing about Johnny B. Bad at this time was his ring entrance music. That was terrible.
None of the music was that great. It just regular.
I am seeing a shadow of people driving by. That's what it is.
Yeah, I got a window right there. Of course, you can see that one. Then I got two over here, which
Okay.
I'm reversed, so I'm pointing this way, but it's actually that way or that way. Uh, to my left, this is my left.
Okay.
It's camera's reversed, but yeah, I got two windows here and I got one behind me. Well, I got two. Well, yeah, one behind me.
No, no. If that was your left, then from the way that I'm seeing it, your camera is straight. You're not using mirror image.
That's
That's
my right.
right. Yeah. So you're good.
Okay, it must be just on here. But yeah, I got windows one, two, three, four right around me. So streets
Well,
right
do
over.
you have any writing on your shirt?
Yeah,
Okay, so let's bring that up.
If you can see it. Yeah, that's my class shirt. I was
Okay.
supposed to have a private lesson this morning. They canceled on me, so I was
Uh,
dressed to go to class for an hour after I got off work today.
okay. Oh, one more thing about Bobby Eaton and Terry Taylor. There was one point in the match that I found was funny. Uh, Bobby did a sunset flip on Terry, and Terry was reaching over trying to get the rope to keep from falling down, and the referee
Got in the way.
got in the way, causing Terry to fall.
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious. Um,
Well, it did kind of the same thing on what match was it? What match was that? Somebody had their leg on the rope, and it was almost like the referee knocked it off. That was
oh, I
Johnny B.
know.
Bad. That was the Johnny B. Bad, and
Yeah, that was that
that
same
was
match.
that match.
Yeah, that was that same match. No, yeah, Johnny B. Bad's match. Yeah, so Johnny B. Bad, Jimmy Garvin. Apparently, the Freebirds had just turned face. Um, 'Cause
Face-ish.
I was reading somewhere where Michael Hayes had to punch Terry Long at the end of this whole thing to remind the fans that he's supposed to be the good guy. Um, so I don't know a whole lot about them going from heel to face, but um,
Now, one thing about this match that really set with me a little bit is old school was, of course, Jimmy Garvin, and I looked him up. He is the stepson of Ronnie Garvin.
yes,
Um, but his ring entrance, of course, he had joined the Freebirds at some point in time because I remember the Freebirds as Michael Hayes, Terry Gordy, and Buddy Roberts, I believe, back in Mid South, and they always came out to Bad Street USA, and
I
that's what they.
always thought that Jimmy was one of the original members.
I don't think so.
According to what I'm seeing, no, he wasn't. Wow. Okay.
Um, Terry Bam Bam Gordy was really good wrestler back in the day. Um, physical, really physical type wrestler.
I remember Terry Gordy and Steve Williams, Doctor Death.
They used to have a lot of run-ins, and the Freebirds were always they were the big heels in Mid South.
Okay.
Um, this was around they you had different heel factions. You had them. You had the guys that were in Skandarak bars. His what he called stable.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, hearing the Bad Street USA song when Garvin was coming out, I was like, oh yeah, this is old school stuff here. And during that match, you could see Hayes take his arm. He was supposed to have been injured. You could see Hayes take his arm out of the sling and was
Yeah.
hitting marrow.
Because Hayes was supposed to have had a match that night. Um, I'm trying to see where Jimmy joined the Freebirds, but there's too much here written for me to read this while doing this show here. Um, oh wait, no. He joined the Freebirds in '89. Okay, here we go.
So he'd have been part of them for a couple of years.
Yeah, I don't know why. I was thinking that he was one of the original members, but I guess not. So I didn't really think too much about this match. half the time it seemed like that Johnny B. Bad was doing a lot of prancing around.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It was a good back and forth match. It wasn't one sided. They were going back and forth at each other
right.
through the whole match. Plus, you had Teddy Long and Hayes on the outside. You know, getting mixed in here and there.
Yeah, I forgot about Teddy Long getting involved in these matches. I'm so used to him. Uh, I knew that he had been a manager, especially for Doom. Um, I did not know until watching this that he was manager for Johnny B. Bad. I just knew that he was with Doom, and then all of a sudden he was a referee for the WWF, and then becoming a SmackDown general manager.
Holla at me, player.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was that, and there was always one on one with the Undertaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember him clearly as the referee, and I remember him as the manager for Ron Simmons and Butch Reed. But I do not ever remember him being with Johnny B. Bad. So that must have been just a short lived thing.
Now Hacksaw Butch Reed he's old school too. I
Yeah.
enjoyed watching his matches. That and Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer. I forgot all about Mad Dog. That was a crazy son of a gun.
Seems like Mid South had a lot of crazy things going on. And
Yeah, I mean they didn't last. They didn't last the long run of things.
uh,
But the years I watched. I mean, I got fond memories because I watched it with my grandfather, and
okay.
I really enjoyed that time. And then just getting in, getting involved with wrestling back then is what started. Me watching, and all these wrestlers that you see or have seen come up in WCW and WWF. A bunch of them came from Mid South.
But the end of this match here, Jimmy did his finisher on Johnny, but Terry Long was distracting the referee. Jimmy came out, and then Johnny B. Bad comes out and does a weak looking punch.
But he sold it pretty good.
He did, but he was supposed to be knocked out, but he, whatever reason, put his foot on the rope over top of the referee.
Yeah,
And then Teddy comes out and pushes it off.
right. He wouldn't have seen it anyways.
No,
Well, the referee should have felt it
he should. Yeah, he should.
if it was real.
Um, but I thought that punch was just too weak. Um, then also, if this is the right one, I think that when at the beginning of before the match started, uh, Johnny was doing these things with Teddy. He had these things.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny hit one of them so hard that it flew off of Teddy's hand.
Yeah, they probably landed in the first row.
I I don't know where it went.
It went flying.
It did. Um, and also, I have written down here too much makeup for Johnny Bad. Holy cow!
Yeah,
I,
like I said, he looked like a little Richard.
he did. I don't know how he let them talk him into doing that. I don't know if I'd have been able to go out there and do it.
Having the amateur background in boxing and all that stuff, and then okay, I'm going to wrestling. I'm gonna put makeup on,
Yeah, but I
not
am.
just makeup, but like deep makeup,
Yeah,
women makeup.
he almost looked like a woman.
Yeah. I'm not going there. I want to offend our viewers. Um, but yeah, you know, in the
But
day when
I
guys didn't wear that much
that
makeup.
they did bring up his boxing background. during the show. I am glad that they did bring that up. So after that, we go back to Missy Hyatt, and it's just her by herself. She's looking for the Phantom, and then all of a sudden, Bobby Eaton comes by, and
Carrying
he's
a pumpkin.
yeah, he's carrying a pumpkin.
And he said something about, I'm fixing to go party. Like, how
Yeah,
are you partying with a pumpkin?
oh, you can.
He's going to the kitchen? Now, if he had showed up with a drill in his hand and a pumpkin,
He was going somewhere. I don't know if it was the kitchen or not. Um,
and he had done change into some red tights or red shorts
I
at that point in time.
I wasn't paying attention to that. I was just laughing. I was
Yeah.
just laughing at the whole thing. I never paid attention to what he was wearing.
Well, I just noticed it when he was holding the pumpkin. It's like he's wearing red now. He must have just got out of the shower, blah blah blah, changed clothes. But I'm like, why are you carrying a pumpkin? And then he said, I'm gonna go. I got to go party.
Yeah,
I'm thinking like, uh,
and she was saying something, and I guess he was getting annoyed. He looked at the cameras at women, and then took
yeah,
off.
and walk off. Yeah, and this was a whole faction there of her ad libbing or whatever she was doing, and it's like, oh my god, you.
Yeah, she was stopping him so that she could find the Halloween Phantom.
Yeah, and her acting skills, like I said, were non-existent.
Right. Next match is Stunning Steve Austin defending the World Television Championship against Dustin Rhodes. Now, Dustin Rhodes is 22 years old at this time. Uh, Jimmy and Tony were saying that he was 21, but I looked him up. According to his birthday, he was actually 22 years old at this time.
To me, this was the no,
That
this wasn't it. This wasn't it.
was
Um, to me, this was a good match too. Back
it
and
was
forth.
yeah.
I didn't understand. I do understand in one concept, but I don't understand in another. To where you put a time limit on this one, but your other titles you didn't.
Most titles are 1 hour to the finish, but this is TV title. Um, and on regular television, they got 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah, this was a
They
15-minute
kept
time
it
limit.
yeah. So they kept with the time limit for this match.
Okay, well that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Um, Now that match was really good back and forth.
It was a good match. Um, saw a lot of Dusty in Dustin's moves
Hmm.
and a lot of his classic moves like dropping down to the floor and punching from there.
And the elbow and the
The
rolling.
well, that's the Dusty thing. To me, falling down and then hit from below. To me, that's a Dustin thing. I know you said that Dusty did it, but I don't recall ever seeing that before. Not with Dusty. Um, and they went to the 15 limit draw, and then of course Capetta doing the countdown. 5 minutes, 10 minutes remaining, 5 minutes remaining, which I'm used to him doing that.
The ending, the very ending, there was a move that he did to Steve Austin, and it seemed like he was rushed to get back in position to get on the top rope. I forgot what he did, but he did something, and it was almost like he didn't completely finish all the way down on the move, and he immediately jumped back up and was getting on the top rope to
Yeah,
finish up their scheduled ending to wind up finishing up. right at the 3 count before the time ran out right at 2.5. Um, that was the only real, not really a botch, but the only really thing I saw was out of sorts. Um, he got busted open, and I was trying to look to see how whether he actually got Steve actually busted him open, or did he blade himself really
Uh,
quick?
hard to tell. Hard to tell these days. Um, Steve Austin, he he would actually marry Lady Blossom a year later.
Really?
Yeah, the one that came out with him. But what you probably don't know is that Lady Blossom was married from 83 to 84 to Billy Jack Haynes.
Really?
Hmm. Yeah, and he stayed single for the next 38 years until he married this this other wife, the one that he killed.
Billy Jack.
Yeah, and she was 15 years older than Billy Jack Haynes too.
Really?
This second wife, yeah. He's 70 now, and she died at 84, 85.
Goodness.
Yeah, but yeah, in 1992, Steve Austin would marry Lady Blossom, and their marriage lasted until 99. She was actually the one that gave him the Stone Cold nickname.
I remember the story that Stone Cold talked about that.
Yeah, something about drink your coffee or it's going to be Stone Cold or something like
Yeah.
that.
And she said that's your name, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah. Um, and I remember somebody saying something about, Conrad had talked about that. It was during this time there were a lot of matches that went to a draw in WCW. And I forget what Jim Ross was saying. No, Conrad was complaining about that you never get the finish for these time limit draws, and Jim said, "No, that was the finish. It's
It
not.
doesn't.
Yeah, it
It
doesn't have to be that. Okay, the finish is for this guy to win, this guy to lose. Going to the draw, that is your finish.
well, I see if you're kind of continuing the story in certain spots, like Rhodes and Stone Cold or Steve Austin. I'd like to see them wrestle again. And have a decisive winner one way or another.
Yeah,
Even if it's outside interference where somebody interferes, he keeps the title, and then it shifts to Dustin against this other guy. You know,
mhm. And to think just a few years later, these two would become megastars, especially Steve.
yeah. He
Uh,
gets it. He finishes his stint in WCW. He was promised all this stuff, and it fell through. He went to ECW and gave that
well, he got
phenomenal.
in
Yeah,
WCW.
yeah. He gave that
Actually,
phenomenal.
both of them got fired in WCW the same year. They both
Really,
got fired.
I,
Yeah.
um,
I don't know why Steve got fired, but Dustin got fired because he bled with Barry Darso in that travel trailer match.
he bled.
Yeah, he and Darso were doing that match there in the back of this trailer that was driving down the road for Uncensored, and they both bled, but the mandate from the company was no bleeding. The agent that produced the match told them both go ahead and bleed, and they did, and they both got fired for it.
Should have fired the other guy.
I think he got fired too, but they fired them as well.
Oh, well, Steve left WCW and went to ECW with Paul Heyman and gave that phenomenal promo.
That was the birth of Stone Cold. Yep.
Yeah. Um, and of course, he goes to WWF and beats Jake at King of the Ring and
Mhm.
gives out the catchphrase. It became huge. Oh, Austin 316.
Yeah.
You can see Michael Hayes' face when as soon as he said it, just like, oh, that's gold. But
Yeah, but I don't think even Steve expected to see thousands of signs that next day like that.
yeah, it went like wildfire. And you think about this was a time before social media was a big thing or even existent. Um,
Yeah, it didn't exist at that time.
now you imagine what it had been with even bigger than what it was if we had social media.
Uh, Honestly, with today's society, if he'd have said Austin 316, people would some of today's people would say, "Oh, that's blasphemy. You need to be kicked off the show. You need to be fired." That's what today's world would have done.
Well, today's world is too soft.
Yes,
Today's world gets offended by any little thing,
I know.
and it's like, okay, it's okay to be offended,
I
you know,
know.
you know.
And I think if Austin 316 had been put out now, it probably wouldn't be anywhere near as big as what it was then.
I can see that.
Yeah. Um, but
That was a totally different time too. They were doing
much
just
different. Much different, yes.
that attitude era was, do whatever. We'll face the consequences later.
Boy, did they ever. Up next after this, they start promoting Starcade. The voice for this one sound similar to Vince McMahon.
Yeah, I caught that. I kind of skipped through it real quick because I was trying to. Because I finished watching this right before the show.
You watched it this morning?
Yes, that's why it's all like it's right here.
Okay.
I started watching it last night actually, but I finished up
All right.
this morning.
Yeah, I watched this on Tuesday. Then over the next couple of days, I watched the review with Jim Ross, and then today I started watching the watch along with Tony Schiavone. And Tony and Jim both said that it was embarrassing calling the Chamber of Horrors match.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah. So okay, up next is Bill Kazmaier versus Oz.
Yeah,
And
Oz,
Oz, as
Oz.
we would all know, would end up being Kevin Nash, Diesel.
I am so glad that he dropped that nonsense.
Holy shit, yes.
And to me, this was it was it's the worst. Do I have it listed as worst? If not worst, it's the next to worst. No, it's next to worst. Um,
The next match would probably be the worst.
yes, it's up down there for the worst. But yeah, this one was horrible.
Yeah,
Um,
this one was hard. This is the one where, uh, what was it? Some Oz. Okay, this is the match where Cactus Jack was supposed to be taking on Bill Kazmaier, but Cactus got thrown into the Chamber of Horrors, so Oz, Kevin Nash, ended up taking this match.
which, if you think about it, makes sense for somebody's character like Cactus Jack to be in the Chamber of Horror as opposed to
Oh
being
yeah, he's perfect for
on
that
a
match.
regular match.
Yeah,
Um,
he's
but
perfect for that match.
this match here with Bill, I think they tried to make him more tried to push him more than I think they should have, being, you know, Olympic strongman or
Well, they did say during his entrance that Bill Kazmaier, hi Tom, that Bill Kazmaier was in the Guinness Book World of Records for the
yeah,
strongest man in
yeah.
the world.
Um,
So
he
it makes sense to do his character the way that they did, and also carrying that big globe on his shoulder.
yeah, I liked all that and all that, but I don't think he had much wrestling ability. He was very stiff during the right at 4 minutes he was in this match.
Yeah,
Um,
um, but he did skin the cat, and that was hard for somebody like him to be able to do it. He did it with ease. Did you notice that?
yeah,
Yeah, it's like he didn't even struggle. He just flipped right up. Um, it did seem like they went to the finish very quick.
yeah. I saw a couple miscues or things didn't seem like they were working out too good, and it was like maybe Nash was like, "We got to end this thing."
Yeah, because they were doing some things, and then all of a sudden Bill just picks him up and yes, 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 I quit, I quit.
Yeah,
It seemed like it went really quick, which in a way that was kind of a blessing.
yeah. I didn't
Was
want to see another 10 minutes of, you know,
no,
that
and,
stiffness and all that,
and
because
I,
that's
huh?
because being that stiff with somebody like that doesn't have that wrestling ability yet, can wind up causing, injury.
Well, not only that, but I don't think that Bill would have had the stamina to go another 10 minutes.
Probably not.
Yeah, um, because bodybuilder, especially the more bulky ones, when they get into wrestling, they don't have very long matches. They don't have very long matches. So, and honestly, I think this event could have done without that match. Period.
Yeah, that one and the next one.
Yeah, the next one, Van Hammer and Doug Summers. Oh boy, 1 minute and 13 seconds. That was
I didn't understand I didn't understand the gimmick. You're this metalhead, which I didn't have a problem with that, and coming out with a guitar. But then while you're in the ring, you got guys with jackhammers.
I noticed that.
It's like I can't decide a gimmick. Let's put both of them together.
Yeah, it. I think they went with the jackhammer because hammer,
Hmm.
jackhammer, Van Hammer. Um, yeah,
I'm sure picked
that.
from Van Halen. You know,
Well, heavy metal Van Hammer. I thought was a cool ass name.
I like the gimmick. I just didn't.
Yeah.
I should have done away with the jack. You could have not even had the jackhammers in there, and everything would have been fine. To me, it was out of place.
No, I think even without the jackhammers, this whole thing would have been bad.
Well, I mean, the match sucked. I
Yeah, the
mean,
match was bad.
and that was probably there was a miscue at the very beginning of this match when Doug went against the ropes. Of course, he was an old wrestler. When he
Yeah,
went against the ropes and come back, and he's like went down, and there was Van Hammer was standing up, and it was like then he kind of fell into the corner. I'm
yeah,
like,
I noticed that too.
somebody didn't know what the other one was doing for a couple of seconds.
Or or maybe Van Hammer wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing, and that threw Doug off.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Somebody didn't know.
Guy.
Somebody miscommunicated. They miscommunicated with one another. It looked like coming from Doug coming from the ropes was supposed to take a knee maybe to the gut the way he went down
Uh,
because he kind of bent over when he got to him and it was like, and then Van Hammer did a clothesline on him that looked like it was very sloppy. It was like to the side or something, and he fell awkwardly wrong with the way he would have gotten struck. It was just off, and I was
yeah,
like, and that's another one of those matches where I think is like, let's just go ahead and end this because this ain't working.
yeah. I'm glad that they cut. They should not have had this at all.
Because I think Doug kicked out at like 3.5, kind of kicked out.
He No, I think he tried to kick it right at 3, but either way, the match is over. Thankfully, Van Hammer had a great look. He had a great look. Um, he's got some charisma, but his work in the ring, not so much. At least not on this match.
Yeah, I think I read where he went on to do some other stuff in there, and it was a little push with him.
Yeah, I remember seeing him in 92, 93. Um, he's a little bit better than what he was here. I think he had just debuted not long before this.
Yeah, and it goes the fact you're only as good as the guy that's in the ring with you. If the guy in the ring ain't selling your stuff and ain't taking the bumps and all that stuff, then you know
Right. Um, but at the same time, okay,
you got to have skill along with it, though.
yeah, but at the same time, if you're not communicating right, then the guy you're in the ring with isn't going to make you look good. Now, I'm
Exactly.
looking up at cagemat.net, and Van Hammer, according to this, his first match was September 5th, 1991.
So it wouldn't have been a month.
It was his 21st match in Halloween Havoc.
That would have been his first pay per view too.
Yeah, it would have been because the previous pay per view was Great American Bash back in July. Um, but yeah, he had a great look, no question about that. But the executives were the ones that were trying to push him, and they were trying to push him way too soon, um, and that hurt him greatly.
Right.
But yeah, this was another match that should not have been.
I got that down as the worst match on the card, without a doubt. Even as bad as the one previous was. This was horrible.
The next match, Flying Brian Pillman versus Richard Morton. Um,
Ricky Morton of the Rock and Roll Express.
yep. He
Um,
recently turned heel and became Richard Morton because the whole thing with the York Foundation is that you're going to use your given names, your full name. So Terry became Terrence, Ricky became Richard. There was a few more on here. Okay, York Foundation. Uh, Mike Michael Wall Street, which is IRS. Then there's Tommy Rich, who became Thomas Rich. And then Mr. Huge.
Mr. Who?
Huge.
Mr. Huge.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
he big black guy dressed in khakis and a white shirt, like a business shirt. Always came out in a suit, big black hat, sunglasses.
This would have been time when I wasn't watching, so um, let me see if I can pull what you're
Yeah,
talking about.
Mister. Right here.
Bringing it up.
That's that's what he looked like.
Okay. Kind of fits with that whole business persona for their group with the names coming from almost like a Hunter Hearst Helmsley type
Well, I don't know
character.
when he was with the York Foundation because he didn't come out for any of those two matches. He only came out for the main event. So I don't know when he was in the York Foundation. Um, but Brian Pillman and Ricky Morton, I thought it was a good match,
It
but
was.
I read where there were people kind of disappointed because it wasn't as an exciting match as they thought it was going to be.
It seemed like the win came really quick. And it was like we're back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and all of a sudden, we're pulling the plug on it.
Well, they went almost 13 minutes, so that's a decent length for a match.
Yeah, it was like, I mean, it was back and forth the whole time,
Yeah, it was.
and then all of a sudden, it's like, you know, we get out of it quick.
Oh, and this
Wasn't
this was the other match of the night that had the referee camera.
Yeah, and he did a little better job on this one than he did the other.
He didn't have 20 people in the ring with him either.
That's true.
Um, one thing I did notice, which had to have hurt, when Flying Brian did his finish, his elbow was on Richard's hair, and then when everything was done, Richard got up while Brian's elbow was still down, and it pulled his hair out because when he went to go celebrate, he had hair sticking out from his elbow.
Good lord.
Yeah, I was thinking, holy cow, when did that happen? So I backed it up a little bit and saw when it did.
Yanked some of his hair out.
That had to hurt.
I want to go back just a little bit because that reminded me of a move in the Mark Merrill match when he
Yeah,
comes off the top rope and jumps and basically somersaults over him and does a roll up on him. Do you remember seeing that?
I don't.
I was like, went up because he was on the top rope and he jumped and he cleared him and then grabbed him and pulled him down for a roll up. And I was like, wow, that was pretty good. It wasn't a great, it was a kind of a, it wasn't clean, but it was still pretty good,
Huh.
pretty good move in that.
I just now got the notification that we went live 50 minutes or
50 minutes, hour and
an
49
hour and
minutes.
50 minutes. Yeah, it just
Yeah.
popped up. Baines Network is live at 2:06 p.m. Why is it just now getting to my phone?
I don't know. My phone is probably dead. I got to go back to work and get my,
You don't have any other charger?
no. Well, I'd have to get up and find one, and I'm not getting up.
Wow. But I think they made the right choice here with Brian Pillman being the first light heavyweight champion. Um, the the tournament that they used for this, the semifinals was done almost 2 months before this, and they waited all this time, and it turned out that Pillman actually had a shoulder injury that he had to heal up.
Yeah,
And
they were talking about his shoulder, through the match.
yeah,
Anyhow,
that's probably why they waited to do this at Halloween Havoc to get him healed up as much as possible.
right.
Um, then after this match, another short one, the Halloween Phantom versus Tom Zeke, the Z-Man.
That was, and I will say this about you're getting this mystique about the Phantom coming out. You don't want to know nobody who he is. They
Yeah,
did a good job of keeping him covered up from head to toe in black, so that you couldn't tell who it was. But they kind of gave it a little bit away when there was like he did that, that finisher almost. Um, what
it
was Rick
looks like
Rude's?
it looks like the Rude Awakening.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which
and he did it real quick too.
yeah,
He did it very quick, not like he normally would. Um,
that match only went a minute 27.
yeah. So not a whole lot for you to be able to figure out who it is, but knowing after the fact and then going back and watching this match, it's pretty clear.
Yeah,
Um, and it looked like he was struggling with keeping his mask on straight too, because the way that it was interfering with his mouth,
mustache.
and then it seemed like it was going into his mouth.
I like
Um,
I like the entrance music. Entrance music was pretty cool. The whole Phantom of the Opera thing.
yeah, so that would be the last instant of a Halloween theme there.
Well, then you had right after that match was over. Of course, he won. Phantom won. Then you have the little interview at ringside with Paul Heyman and Bischoff.
Yeah, that actually happened after the tag match, but
Oh, that's right. There is another match there. I'm sorry.
the tag match that came out was the Enforcers versus the Patriots for the World Tag Titles. Now the Patriots are the United States Tag Team Championship. United States Tag Team Champions.
Right.
Um, so,
Any
so it's kind of interesting that they would put champion versus champion here, but I don't know what the whole reasoning for this match to be.
you know, I don't understand that concept either. They could have easily put the Patriots, or they easily put them guys. They could have took out one of those other crappy matches and put them in another tag match, and then
Put
you could have
the Young Pistols.
right, and you could have put the Young Pistols in there against them.
Yeah, they would have had a much better match, that's for sure.
That would have made more sense. On the card wise, but as far as that match goes, I mean, it was pretty good. You got Arn Anderson in there, who's a very good technical wrestler anyway. So
Oh yeah.
you're going to have a good match, with him in there. And there's Bisco.
Yeah, it's kind of it was different seeing him wrestle because I am so used to him um, being mainly in the 70s and 80s. And then in the 90s, it was like he came out of retirement to wrestle again. So seeing him at this point is just kind of odd for me. This would have been before he retired.
Right.
Um, Firebreaker Chip seemed like he was struggling in this match. Then again, he was only, oh no, he was he's 28. Uh, he seemed like he was kind of struggling with this match. But Todd Champion, he had the look and the size of somebody who could have been a big star.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but wrestling wise, I did not get it from this match.
Right.
But
And maybe
he had a look that could have
and,
been big.
and maybe that's the issue why he didn't get big is because of his wrestling ability. You got to have the charisma, you got to have the look, and you got to have the athleticism. You know, so many different things. It could be a reason why. Could have been work ethic, anything. Um,
It could have been any. He did have a dark match for the WWF in '93, but it didn't go anywhere beyond that. Um, but yeah, he
I mean, even if you can't give good promos, you can work. They can work around that by giving you a manager to talk for you.
I have no idea what his mic skills were. I've never heard him talk, so I don't know.
That may be another issue. With
Yeah,
that persona that he's using, you need to have good promo. You're not a darker character who can fall back
right.
on a manager.
Um, but Arn Anderson gets the win, and
And the
yeah,
ending worked out pretty good. It seemed like it moved like it was supposed to.
well, Arn and Larry I would say, are the kind of guys to keep a match going the way that it needs to be.
Right.
Because both of these guys were ring generals.
Right. They know what they're doing in there.
Yeah,
And even if you got somebody that's not quite as vetted in there, those guys can rely on those two older guys.
yeah.
You know.
And that was definitely what this match was, the younger generation taking on the older generation.
Right.
And it's hard to imagine Arn Anderson being considered the older generation, and he was only 33 years old in this.
Really?
Yeah, he was
He
born.
looked like he's in his mid 40s.
I know. He was born in 1958.
I mean, not having that much hair upstairs.
That does that does a lot right there. Yeah, he was born in 1958, so he's only 33 in this match.
Lord. Bet he was still young.
Yeah. Uh, Larry was 39 in this match. Chip was 28. Todd Champion is 31.
Okay.
But yeah, Arn Anderson was only 33.
Well, he's been around a while.
Yeah.
Which brings
So,
us to our last. Well, go back to the Paul Heyman interview.
yeah.
Of course, he gave a traditional Paul Heyman promo, which
And he sounds exactly like what he does now.
Yeah, and he was going by Paulie Dangerously, which is what
Mhm.
I knew him from back in CCW.
That was how I first knew him too. Uh,
Um, he
Paulie
had
Dangerously and the Dangerous Alliance.
right. This is when he starts talking about Sting and bringing a guy in, and that's when they unveil that Rick Rude is actually the Phantom, and he gives a good old promo for wanting to take down the establishment of WCW.
Hmm.
Which later on he would leave the company and go form ECW. He had a signature little phone there in the promo. Also, I saw that
Hmm.
his cordless phone.
I think it was clear to see that Paul was going to end up being one of the biggest names in all of wrestling, even back then. He he just had that it factor,
Excuse me.
and now he is about to become one of the most popular people on the planet. Because we know that once Roman Reigns comes back, he's going to be a bigger face than Cody Rhodes is.
Yeah, they're gonna wait for him.
Yeah.
Just what they do with it when he comes back is a whole different thing, and that's gonna. And I have not seen. I haven't watched clips over the past couple weeks of any WWF stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of really lost on what's going on right now. I do know the Liv Morgan and Dom thing going on, which predicted. I
Oh,
predicted back.
it
Few,
went it went to another level here these last couple of weeks.
yeah, I knew that was probably coming when that whole situation happened with Rhea going out and
I
her.
I wasn't expecting her to kiss him.
Well, I knew that they were fixing to push Liv and him together somehow or another because it's really going to get under Rhea's skin when she comes back. Not only does she have her title, but she has her man storyline wise.
What's funny is that there's a picture right now floating out on Facebook where it has a picture of Dominic and his wife, Dominic and Rhea, girlfriend, and then Dominic and Liv, side piece.
So Dom's the pimp man, huh?
Dom has become the next generation of Latino heat. But yeah, um, things have gotten really interesting,
I'm waiting. Yeah, I got to get caught back up. I just got a lot going on right now.
right?
Work in my life right now. Just so much stuff I got to get done. I'm being pulled in 15 different directions.
Oh, believe me, I can understand that.
So even when I get off of here, I got a bunch of stuff I got to get done
Yeah.
this afternoon. You know,
Um, Now, when Rick Rude when when they revealed Rick Rude, I didn't hear much of a response from the crowd. Did you?
I didn't pay it no mind really. I was really zoned in on the Rick Rude and seeing Paul Paul's reaction and uh, Medusa's reaction. Um, I don't recall too much of a noise.
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't really catch much of a response from them. It's almost like they had no idea who he was.
Right. And that would be that might be partly because of the way they were facing, because you're facing back towards the entrance with that whole deal. There are no screens or anything up.
No, but Paul did say Rick Rude's name. So just the name alone should have brought in a lot of recognition because of what he had done with the WWF.
Right.
So I don't know. Um, but he was a huge get for WCW.
Oh yeah.
Uh, and one thing I did want to mention really quick, especially since he's being brought in to be Sting's opponent, the whole night I felt like Sting got the biggest pop
Yeah.
from the whole crowd.
And he was there not very long. They
Sting
yeah.
in WCW?
No, in the pay-per-view.
Oh,
Um
what are you talking about?
now he came out that first match and that was
Yeah,
it. Um if
yeah.
anything, when Rude came out and started talking about, Sting should have maybe popped him out there and had people separating him and Rude, you know, and not even got close to the whole thing. Just he comes out, runs his mouth a little bit, and then you know they're separating both of them. They don't even get anywhere close, and that would have been a good way to really get the heat up.
I don't even know when anybody had ever done something like that on any show, having a fight where they all had to be separated like that. Um,
The last match, Lex Luger versus Ron Simmons in a 2 out of 3 falls.
and uh, this is where Mr. Hughes comes out. He and Harley Race are with Lex Luger. Dusty Rhodes is with Ron Simmons, and for whatever reason, Mr. Hughes was banned from ringside um, for the match, even though they let him come out.
Why
And
even
then,
bring him out?
yeah, that's the thing. I don't understand that, but it was somehow stipulated before the event that he was banned from ringside. Why, I don't know. Um, Maybe to keep it equal because you got Harley Race and Dusty Rhodes, and then there's nobody else to counterbalance Mr. Huge. I'm really glad they did not do the referee camera on this match.
Yeah,
Uh, Ron Simmons gets the first fall.
with a massive power slam.
Well, that was his finish.
Yeah,
That was his normal finish. But that came quick, 4.5
yeah,
minutes.
yeah.
And then for the second fall, all of a sudden they're like winded and they're sweating really bad.
Oh
Both
yeah,
of
yeah.
them. And the second fall is a disqualification. Ron Simmons threw Lex Luger over the
Flipped him
top.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But the way that Luger ran at him is that he should have flipped both of them over. But Harley Race was holding on to Simmons to keep him from
him
falling.
down.
That's what
Exactly.
disqualification. Now this is what gets me. WCW at this time was over the top rope disqualified. But Jim and Tony were saying throughout the entire night that is referee's discretion.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the only time that a referee disqualified somebody for throwing somebody over the rope, even though we had seen that many times throughout the night.
Right.
Um, and then, they get that 1 minute rest period, and you can hear everything that Dusty is saying, and he's saying all his Dusty things to
Mm-hmm.
Ron Simmons. I forget what he was saying specifically. Um, but it was everything that he would have said. And then Lex Luger gets the third fall via pile driver.
At some point in time between the second and third fall, I mean, it looked like it happened right after the second fall, or the disqualification, and he had a cut over his eye where he was bleeding,
Yes.
and I rolled it back, a little bit while I was watching. I was like, where did that happen? I couldn't find anywhere where that took place.
I think that may have happened while they were both outside. Um, I don't remember the specifics, but I remember Luger was backed up against the ring post, and Simmons was going to do a tackle on him, and Luger got out of the way, and Simmons hit the.
Hit his shoulder.
Yeah. Now I don't know if Luger may have bladed at that time, but in the Jim Ross episode, it said that he actually bled the hard way.
He must have gotten a shot
Yeah.
from Simmons, because I remember reading somewhere that was like they did bleed, but there's also they know to hit like right here. It's really easy to bleed right at that brow area.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing but bone right there. So
I thought Lex was the only one who bled. I didn't know that.
yeah, no, Simmons didn't bleed,
Okay.
but maybe Ron hit him, and caught him the hard way.
Yeah, I'm not sure when that happened. Um, and then when Lex Luger got the pin after the pile driver, I thought that was weird because I had always known him to use the torture rack as his finish. But somebody said that he was using a pile driver as his finish at one point too, which I never knew.
And you could tell the pile driver. I mean, it was really a safe pile driver. I mean,
Yeah.
his head hit nowhere near on the canvas and all. It was an okay match for what it was. It was a lot of back and forth. You ain't going to see a whole lot of high flying and crazy stuff with those two guys in there.
No, not with them.
Um,
You'd be seeing a lot more football related moves because they were both football players.
right.
And then after the match was done, Luger grabbed his title and just quickly left. Did no celebrate, no nothing.
He got out of Dodge.
Yeah, they both did. And one thing that I noticed that right after that match, that arena started emptying out quick.
Maybe he wanted to beat traffic, which I'm sure they stayed in the back showering because they were dripping with oil, and I'm sure they were already oiled up when they got there.
Oh no, I'm talking about the audience.
I'm talking about them, the wrestlers and all.
Oh yeah, no.
I turned it off as soon as the match was over. As soon as Luger got his belt, I turned it off.
Okay,
Came
well,
right in here.
Shortly after the match was done, it went back to Tony and Jim. Oh, there was another thing I did not write down, but it was after the Johnny B. Bad Jimmy Garvin match. They went to Tony and Jim, and Jim was saying something about Michael Hayes being injured, and he said, as you saw, that was not the case. He's not really injured.
Right.
I don't know if that was sort of like pulling back the curtain a little bit. What they would do, I have no idea.
Well, because on screen you saw Hayes take his hand out of the sling, hit, and then he was like, shh, put his hand back in the sleeve. And then even during the middle of the match, he's sitting there slamming his hands on the mat. And I'm like, he's not even worried about the sling anymore.
And he was supposed to have had, I can't find out who he was supposed to be in the match with, but it was said that during the show that he was supposed to have a match that night. Here it is. Doug Summers replaced the injured Michael Hayes, who was originally scheduled in a match against Van Hammer.
So Michael Hayes would have been Van Hammer.
Michael Hayes would have been taken on Van Hammer.
I can see why they changed that because they're trying to push Hammer up, Hammer, and you can't have Hammer beat Michael Hayes.
No, but Michael Hayes certainly would have made him look a lot better.
Oh hell yeah! And that may be part of the reason his match went the way it was. They threw this other guy in there, who'd spur of the moments like
Yeah.
call this local old guy in here to jobber for him.
Either way, that match should not have. That was basically a squash match, and squash matches don't happen. Well, talent enhancement matches don't happen on pay per view because that's basically what this was.
That should have been a dark match, or not even been put on there. You should have done it at a house show.
Right. But after Luger and Simmons, the arena just started quickly emptying out. Very, very fast.
Everybody wanted to get to that party Bobby Eaton was having with the pumpkin.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
We gotta go. Man. Everybody, go get your pumpkins out of the car. We got a pumpkin party going on.
Yeah, I got written down here. Not a big reaction when Luger won the match. And I also have written down here that the crowd grew more quiet as the night went on.
And it really wasn't a long pay-per-view compared to what we have now.
Yeah, this one here was a standard pay-per-view. Less
2:30.
Leading up to this point was less than 3 hours, except for no, I can't say that. The WrestleManias have been going over 3 hours, but they've been having 14 and 16 matches.
Right.
The typical wrestling pay-per-views are 3 hours.
So you start at 7:00 ish.
Yeah.
By 9:30 you're done.
More or less.
Yeah.
And another thing that I thought was very bothersome was the music did not match the talent. It seemed like all the music was just generic,
thrown together stuff.
Yeah. Like there was nothing that matched the wrestlers and their personalities, not like they did in the WWF. It's like, okay, well, here's Ron Simmons, so we'll give you this piece of music. Here's Lex, we'll give you this piece of music.
Yeah, other than Bad Street.
Yeah, Bad Street, and then whatever that crap was that Johnny B. Bad came out with.
I don't remember the music at all. I was too busy looking at Little Richard walking down the ring. I'd never seen Mark Merrow. This is the first WCW pay-per-view that I've seen back before they were bigger than what they were.
Really?
With Sting and Hogan and all that. So it was like,
okay.
So I'd never seen, Mark Merrow, in that light. I was like, okay.
Yeah, Johnny B. Bad, he was that way for the next 3-4 years.
So when I looked up the matches, I was writing everything down. It's like, all right, this guy's versus this guy's. Oh, Johnny B. Bad, who is that? Oh, it's Mark Merrow. Okay. And so it was a big surprise to see Mark Merrow come out dressed the way he was. I was like, what? Yeah. And then the same thing with Oz. And I didn't know who Oz was. I just said, I saw it was like, all right, versus Oz. I don't know who Oz is. So when he come out, I was like, holy shit.
And he was 31 at that time.
And it's funny how, like we said at the beginning of the program, how a lot of these wrestlers went on to be in WWF or WWE, including, you know, managers of valets.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Is Rick Rude in the Hall of Fame?
Yes,
12,
after death.
13, 14, 15, 16, 17 names on this are in the Hall of Fame. That's a pretty good chunk.
And you think, all right, Terry Reynolds left. You know, Dustin left. You know, they wound up getting married and divorced.
Mhm.
Mark Merrill left. He
Half
married.
of these people went to the WWF after this.
Yeah, he married Sable. They got divorced.
Uh,
Uh,
see, he may have been. Oh no, he married Sable in '94.
and then you got Stone Cold, of course. Later on to marry Deborah.
Yep, he did.
Um,
That didn't last long.
now, you know, and back in that day, watching that, you never knew she had a speech impediment. She had a lisp until the 9/11 happened, and they did the 9/11 show. And or what? No, 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 no. I take it back. It was Owen Hart. Owen Hart dying when she was talking about Owen. That's what it was. When Owen died, that next show they had interviews with wrestlers and all in between matches, and that's when I first noticed that she had a lisp when she talked.
I don't remember. I need to find that Owen Hart episode and watch it. I've got that pay-per-view on tape, the one that he died on.
I've got it on VHS somewhere. I remember coming home. I was gone somewhere, and I come home. Me and my uncle would watch together, and I get there and it's all quiet. There's nothing going on. It's like, what's going on? He said, Owen Hart just fell into the ring. I was like, oh, so it's kind of crazy. And Taker, I remember an interview with Taker. I said that was the hardest thing to do is come out there and still put on a show so you could see it on Taker's face that the seriousness of what just happened. Now he's got to go out and still perform. You know,
Yeah, I would not have wanted to be in that arena that night. And one of these days, we're going to have to do an episode on Owen. Um, but for Halloween Havoc '91, I gave this one a C minus.
really.
Yeah,
Far as well, the pay per view as a whole, I would probably maybe a B minus. Um, if they would have gotten rid of a couple of those matches, maybe it went a little bit higher.
that's what it was for me. And plus the Chamber of Horrors match, that was just
That was garbage.
yeah.
Yeah, that was garbage. Good idea, poorly executed. Um,
There was really 5 matches out of the 11 that turned out to be decent.
you could have taken that Chamber of Horrors match, took out the chair, took that completely out, and had a much better match.
I think I would agree with that.
You could have had a much better match in there when taking that monstrosity out of there.
Take that out. Take the Oz match out. Take the Van Hammer match out. Um,
Swap up Zabisco and Anderson.
Yeah, I would have put the Patriots and the Young Pistols together. Then you would have to find an opponent for On and Larry. Um, I would leave the Phantom Tom Zink match simply because of Halloween Phantom. And by extension, that means I would have to leave the Creatures match in there as well because of the Halloween thing. But Bob Eaton, Terry Taylor, Steve Austin, Dustin Rhodes, those were the two best matches they had. Um, then Lex and Ron. That's my top three for this night.
Mine too. Those were good matches.
Yeah,
To me, the Austin match was the top match for me. I thought it
that
was a
was
really good match. Him
that
and
was your
Dustin.
top match, and my top match was Bobby Eaton and Terry Taylor. But to me, those were the two best matches of the night.
I agree.
Yeah, but yeah, with everything that was going on with the entire show, the entire production, I really had to go C minus on this one because there was so much that they could have done to make it a lot better.
I
So
agree.
tomorrow is Battleground.
Tomorrow's battleground. What's
Yeah,
today? What's
tomorrow's
what's the day? Saturday? Sunday? I don't even know what day it is.
Saturday.
Today is Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay.
So tomorrow's Battleground. So it says that it starts at 7 Eastern, but I don't know if they're doing a pre-show or not. I don't know if that is the pre-show. So so it is tomorrow night. The next week is Clash of the Castle.
I've got to get caught up. I got to get caught up this week before Clash comes out.
Yeah, you do.
So
Not only for the Judgment Day stuff, but also for the Bloodline stuff. We're getting chance. We want Roman.
really,
They the crowd is chanting that every time either the Bloodline comes out or just Paul comes out. We want Roman. And Paul has said it twice now, more than you ever know. I want Roman too.
and what would be good if they can really push this a little bit with having his theme music come on and then have Solo come out and really get the heat on Solo.
Yeah, it would. He's got this upbeat kind of music right now. Um, it's very much the opposite of what Romans is.
If they did that, and oh man, they would really turn on his ass.
Be hard be hard to turn on him more than they already have now. So so yeah, we got Battleground coming on tomorrow night. Uh, are you going to try to watch that?
Yes, I am. There's no promises, but yes, I am
Okay, 'cause I know I will be.
trying to
Uh,
see what.
they got some good matches on there.
I don't know my calendar right now because my phone's dead. Everything's on my calendar. Wait, here's a calendar. Let's see. Well, I can just do it in my head. I work next Sunday, so I am off next Saturday.
Okay.
Next Sunday is Father's Day, isn't it? Isn't it?
Usually it's yeah, it is next Sun. Father's Day is next Saturday, Sunday.
Okay.
Holy cow, it's coming up already.
Yep. So we could do another show Saturday and talk about when is Clash? A week after Father's Day?
Saturday.
It's next Saturday.
Yeah, and because of it being in Scotland, that
It's gonna
means
be
it's
early.
in the afternoon. So, um, oh boy,
I'm off Wednesday.
you're off Wednesday.
Yeah, we could do if I can watch the show, we can do a pre-show taping Wednesday of the pay-per-view tomorrow, or we can discuss what's going on uh, before the Clash.
Well, let's do the pre-tape on Wednesday for Battleground,
Okay.
um, and then
Even if I don't watch it tomorrow, I got 2 or 3 days. I could squeeze it in somewhere. I'm sure. Take
okay.
notes.
Well, actually, hold on, because one of the Wednesday night shows just went on vacation. So, would you be up for doing a live at 7 o'clock your time Wednesday night?
I should be able to do that.
Okay. Because Unveiled Paranormal just had their last show of the season and not going to pick back up until sometime in the fall.
Okay.
So we can hijack their time on this Wednesday for this particular show. And then maybe since Clash of the Castle is going to be early, I'm going to guess 2 o'clock my time. So 1 o'clock your time, I think.
So that's 7 Central or 7 Eastern
Well,
Wednesday.
oh, it'll be 7 Central for you.
Okay.
Now let me see what time Clash of the Castle is. They okay. Tomorrow Battleground show starts at 7 p.m. Eastern, so 6 for you. Clash of the Castle. Okay, it's not giving me a time. It's not giving me a time for Clash of the Castle, so we're not going to know until later. But I was thinking that if it's early, like say 1 o'clock your time, maybe we could do a review immediately after that.
Okay. I'll let you know something Wednesday. I'm not sure what Saturday brings right now.
Okay. All right. So we'll plan on Wednesday doing Battleground review. Um, oh shit, that's going to be the same time that Joe and Chris are on. Uh, let's see here.
Well, even if we do a pre-taping.
Yeah, we can do a pre-taping, but I wanna kind of have it premiere on the network before.
Before Saturday.
No, we can do the pre-taping, and then I can air it Saturday morning before Clash comes on.
We could do that.
Yeah, we just have to make sure that we are under 2 hours.
Correct.
Yeah, otherwise StreamYard's going to yell at me.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, we'll plan on that. So 7 o'clock your time, 8 o'clock my time. We'll do a tape and
Okay.
uh, and we'll talk about Battleground.
Okay. Sounds good.
All righty. Well, so we'll go ahead and wrap up this show. Enjoy your Battleground. I know I am.
Yeah, hope everybody enjoyed the show. Y'all maybe go back and watch Halloween Havoc '91. See what we're kind of talking about and some of these older characters and stuff.
Yeah, I really enjoyed doing some of the Halloween, not just Halloween Havoc, but some of the WCW stuff because I really did enjoy old school WCW stuff. So we'll figure out when we'll do another WCW
CW.
show. Yeah.
And we're
Oh,
throwing that. We're
so,
throwing ECW. Throwing the ECW sometime.
oh yeah, we'll throw in ECW.
Pre WWE ECW.
Yes, yes. Actually, I think I got a couple of their pay-per-views on tape as well.
I'll have to dig those up. I'm sure. Well, probably get it on Peacock since they own everything now. Since
Oh yeah,
WWE owns everything now.
yeah, I should be able to. All right, well, we will go ahead and say so long, um, and we'll pick up another review. Halloween Havoc could have been a lot better, for sure.
I agree.
Yeah,
It could have been worse, but could have been better.
couldn't get much worse. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. All right, so everybody have a good day or night, whatever the case may be, and we will see you guys later.
Take it easy.